TMNT Mutants Unleashed is a game based on a movie I really like, but that only gets you so far. It's published by Outright Games, who specialize in games based on pre-existing IPs primarily aimed at kids. I recently lamented the loss of subpar PS2 tie-in games for movies and shows, but apparently there's still a niche market for that genre, and this publisher is putting out scores of them quietly in their own corner of the industry. So I figured I'd check this out for a hit of nostalgia for when games like this were everywhere back in the day. But upon playing this, I was quickly slapped across the face with the realization for why these types of games had the reputation they did back then, and why they've mostly fallen out of style. I got myself into this mess and I had to see it through to the end because I just didn't want to quit. Plus, I actually liked this iteration of the characters and I wanted to see how this game added to this version of the Tinja Nerdles. Join me as I spend way more time than I wanted to playing this subpar tie-in game. Oh boy. Even though I miss Rise of the TMNT, plenty of things did carry over from that iteration of the Turtles to this one, including Donatello being a huge anime fan. In fact, Rise of the TMNT even did some JoJo poses! If you want a game like the Turtles do, you should check out today's sponsor, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Spirit. The first globally released mobile JoJo RPG is now available on Google Play and the App Store. You can assemble your dream team of characters from JoJo Parts 1 through 6 and experience several ways to play. Gotta get Jolene in there, but it was I, Dio! Including strategic battles, character progression, and team-building strategies, and even more game modes. And in celebration of the game's launch, you can check out the SSR Jotaro Kujo Special Summon event that's available now. Experience a special character story event following Jotaro Kujo's journey in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders. You won't want to miss this one, so check it out now with my links in the description. Join the adventure now. Download JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Spirit on iOS and Android. Build your ultimate team, enjoy diverse game modes, and unlock exclusive launch rewards. Now, back to the video. Mutants Unleashed serves as a direct sequel to the Mutant Mayhem film, picking up shortly after the Turtles saved the city and became celebrities, who are now allowed to attend human school and have befriended Superfly's former mutant team, the Mighty Mutanimals. It's nice that the Mutanimals characters from the movie are so directly involved in this game's story and are all given plenty to do, both as allies and boss fights. Why are we fighting our bipedal mutated fauna friends? Because a dastardly villain has began poisoning New York's mutants with a pheromone that makes them paranoid and violent, leaving it up to the Turtles to smack some sense into everyone. The game also adds that hundreds more mutants have shown up in NYC after being rejected by TCRI's mutagen experiments, and the city is going through the growing pains of having mutated animals and humans coexisting. This weird racial allegory starts to fall apart when you think about it for more than 2 seconds, but most of them do, and all the mutants are here just to be various beat-em-up enemy types for the Turtles to slash and beat by the thousand. This leads to two halves of the gameplay, your standard beat-em-up style of walking into an arena, engaging in some fisticuffs, then proceeding to the next area to repeat. But also more uniquely, this game has a social sim element where you have the Turtles interact with and form bonds with various NPCs. There is way more talking in this game than you'd think. Turtles' main voice cast all reprise their roles from the movie, thankfully, but most other characters are sound-alikes to their celebrity film counterparts.
Maybe they'll accept cute mutants like you four. We need to do something, Rock. Let the city know we will not go quietly.
This isn't great, but it's a better stand-in for Seth Rogen's voice than the Invincible game.
I'm the awesome yet humble hero, Alan the Alien. Who the fuck are you?
Oh god. Oh god! Bebop works at the pizza place? Does he know what pepperoni is made out of? Oh no! Voice acting overall feels kind of wooden. It just lacks that same high-energy improvisational tone from the film. You can really tell that all 4 Turtle VAs are recording separately and aren't always getting the same level of direction as each other. Plus, the kids were definitely hitting puberty when this was recorded, and their voices are in an awkward phase right now. Mikey's voice got so deep.
My fellow sewer dwellers, I've assembled you today to stage a daring raid on a TCRI Black Site laboratory. We're going to destroy the pheromone once and for all. Here to lay out the plan, I give you Heist Master Splinter.
I'm sure they'll sound better when the movie sequel comes out, whenever that comes out, but this is some of their most inconsistent work as these characters, even though I do love this Turtles cast. The characters do get a healthy amount of banter even when you're playing single player because it's implied that all 4 of them are always together, even if you can't see them. There's an impressive amount of fully voiced dialogue in this game. They had those kids read like 500 pages of snarky Gen Z crap that ranges from instantly dating itself to being really funny depending on the scene. Most of the time though, the banter does have a feeling of being a little more forced than it did in the movie, because it's fully scripted this time instead of just letting the guys riff on their own. It didn't bother me that much, and thank God I'm not that old yet, but overall the jokes are hit or miss. I'd say this game does a pretty respectable job of matching the movie's grimy but colorful aesthetic. They have the scribbled up 2D effects, the environments are textured like they're filled in with markers, and the characters have that lumpy, asymmetrical vibe to make them look like they were drawn by kids in the margins of a page of homework. I love this movie's art design, and Mutants Unleashed did a solid job of translating that to the game's characters and environments, even if the game still feels pretty low budget graphically. Characters are still stiff, doing repeated canned animations and look sort of low poly, but I'm not terribly bothered by it. I think the stylization is strong enough to let me look past the graphical limitations. Half the reason I got this game was because I saw the deluxe edition in Walmart on a huge discount, and that same day I saw some new Playmates Toys figures that had DLC costumes for the game inside the box. I figured I could get both and save them for a rainy day when I want to do more Turtle stuff when the channel was starting to smell too Spider-Man-y. The deluxe edition has some keychains, a steelbook, and an art book, which I do appreciate. The idea of selling a fully articulated action figure with unlockable costumes for a game seemed really cool to me, so I wanted to see how that would work. Mikey and Raph have these casual outfits that they wear at the end of the movie in the school scenes, which is a huge can of worms compared to their normal outfits because giving them pants does imply they're just cool with completely freeballing it naked except for elbows and knee pads. But I entered the code into the computer at the turtle layer and it's not locked behind whichever console you're playing on, and that made it available to change into in the costume closet at the mutant-friendly YMCA in the city. And it's like, yeah, that's just what the action figure looks like. Except they knew they looked weird without the bandanas, so that was a good call. I can't believe I was so enamored with this that I bought the figures and the game, thinking this was some revolutionary new thing, and then I just realized it was amiibos with extra steps, and games have been doing this since I was a kid. Anyone remember Funkies? That was my jam! But hey, it's still a fun idea to get the iPad kids buying physical toys again, and this is more elaborate than a jointless 3-inch vinyl statue with a code on the bottom. Maybe someone else could use this idea more successfully with fully articulated figures, so collecting a skin in the game can also feel like collecting a real-life object too, and less financially irresponsible. Hit that Fortnite code, kids! Yeah! There are actually some DLC costumes for this, like the 80s Turtles and the really 80s Turtles, but I just didn't feel like spending money on a game I'm never going to play again after this. The combat is shockingly easy. I very rarely completed a combat encounter with a rank lower than A or S. You really can just button mash your way through the battles, and it seems like your rank is based on how quickly you beat the enemies rather than how skillfully. How was that S rank? We did terrible! I think somewhere in here there might be a more complex combat system than is advertised, but I really didn't have to worry about learning the nuances of it because it was so easy to just slam the same 3 buttons in sequence until every anthropomorphized animal in the vicinity was in traction. They evolved the ability to walk just so I could take it away. I never really felt like buying the upgrades had a substantial effect on gameplay. It started off pretty easy and then stayed pretty easy. Buying all these moves didn't really feel like anything new was happening. Was I just doing the combat wrong? Can I be doing the combat completely wrong and find the game incredibly easy at the same time? Is that possible? God, this has the absolute worst super moves in a video game ever. The hell was that, Raph? Are those stars made of cardboard? Games in this genre tend to be 3 to 5 hours in length on average, and that's just enough to keep it fresh and fun, especially if you're playing co-op with a friend. I started playing this assuming it would be about the same, and I could just knock out a playthrough in a few hours, and then lickety-split a whole extra video this month on top of all the others. But then, as I was getting to about the 2-hour mark, I was noticing that even then, it still felt like the whole thing was barely starting, and I was still doing basic tutorial stuff and getting introduced to new mechanics, and the story hadn't even really taken off yet. So I looked up how long to beat Mutants Unleashed and then reeled back in horror when I saw that a typical playthrough of this game is at least 12 hours. But it can be up to 14 or 15 hours if you're being particularly thorough with the side quests, which the game highly encourages you to do. 37 story missions kind of feels like extreme overkill for a game like this. You're aiming for Double Dragon, not Skyrim. Alright, well, that's not the end of the world, right? Most of the time, games are way shorter than they ought to be, and you feel kind of ripped off by it these days, so maybe a longer story mode would be a good thing.
It wasn't.
Every time this game does something that I like or find interesting, they ruin all the goodwill by making that thing ass-numbingly boring and repetitive soon after it's introduced. The early game had me surprised and delighted by the amount of levels, and then when I finally knew how long this game was, I thought, wow, They must have put a ton of effort into this if there's this much variety to the locations. I was so impressed by the prospect of this game having that many unique levels until I saw the same area again. And again. And again. It was then that it dawned on me that they pad out the length by reusing levels and locations multiple times. They really stretch this thing out by doing that. If they took the time to model this construction site in the city, you can bet your ass they're gonna get their money's worth by using it over and over. If you play this game really thoroughly, like it wants you to, you're going to see some levels 3, 4, 5, or even 6 different times in different contexts, with only minor differences each time. And these levels are very linear, and you're not going to be experiencing them in a new way every run. This isn't a roguelike or anything. Playing this game through in about 4 sittings across as many days ended up feeling more grueling than fun because of how much they have you retreading levels only to tack on a different janky in-game cutscene at the end. Sometimes they'll make you go through the same level backwards. Oh, daring today, aren't we? There was a period of time for like 7 straight hours of the game in the middle where I was not playing any new levels at all. I had already seen every place before. I was spending that entire time in recycled areas, sometimes even going to the same location twice in a row for 2 different missions. The only saving grace from the monotony of the main missions is something that ends up being tedious in itself. Mutants Unleashed does take time to explore the concept of the turtles being public figures who are allowed to interact with humans in broad daylight now as a result of their fame from the end of the movie. Sadly, we once again don't get to see the turtles in human school, since I think the creators of this and Tales of the TMNT wanted to let the movies explore that new status quo. So the game says the turtles' high school is under lockdown because of the amount of mutant attacks in the city. They do, however, get to spend time socializing with human characters, which in turn lets you unlock new upgrades. Every turtle has their own friend that they can go chop it up with in optional dialogue encounters in the hub worlds, and those have their own little story arcs. Raphael befriends a girl training to be a swimmer in the Paralympics. Donnie makes friends with a nerdy kid who wants to learn martial arts to impress his brothers who are more sporty. Mikey hangs out with a kid who wants to become a streamer, and they have a group let's play session of a game that's clearly supposed to be a parody of Turtles Arcade. Leonardo starts coaching a kickball team to work on his leadership skills. These sections are admittedly pretty cute and charming. I found myself getting invested in these side characters and how the turtles interacted with them early on. But the ones I listed are only a drop in the bucket because there's so many more to worry about, like going to the arcade with Wingnut, pizza delivery missions for Bebop and Rocksteady, oh dear god, helping this scientist guy build his confidence with courting women while also trying to reduce the mutagen contaminations in the city with side missions, doing combat trials with Master Splinter at the lair, helping this guy run his coffee shop or whatever, hanging out with Mondo Gecko while he does street art as a Banksy parody, I guess. There was something with April, but then I ended up actually missing it and then I can't get that achievement now. After a while, it starts to feel overwhelming, the amount of social responsibilities they heap on you to keep up with between missions. And there's the added pressure that there's a timer counting down on all of the main missions, so you only have so much time to dick around with your friends before you have to get back on task with the story. Is this what it's like to be an extrovert? It felt so spread thin trying to get all these dialogue exchanges in a timely manner. And after a while, they started to grate on me to the point that I just let the dialogue play and then stopped paying attention until it was over. They had me and then they lost me. I checked out. I felt like I was getting bombarded with so many of these sequences with zero interactability that I no longer cared. You can't do anything for these except hit the talk button and let the text roll through on these conversations that aren't voice acted. So it's just like...
This is like the fulfillment of her whole evil plan. Have the muties rise up and take
God,
over
I don't
New York
care. Who would have thought this game would end up being so chatty? There are such long cutscenes that stop, then load more long cutscenes, then stop, and load more long cutscenes before finally getting to gameplay again. And this has long load times too. Is there anything to make this game less dull?
We are teaming up, right? Did I misread this situation?
Alright, I tried 2-player couch co-op mode with my wife, and we very quickly came to the conclusion that this game was not built for 2 players. The levels are too narrow and tightly packed for 2 characters to be running through, so we were often getting stuck on each other. Just not enough room, especially during some combat encounters. The camera also defaults to focusing on player 1, so player 2 would get left behind and have to just teleport ahead to keep up, but then there's like a little bit of a delay before player 2 can fight again, so that leaves them open to getting hit. And then 2 players can't interact with some objects at the same time, so one of us ended up just waiting on the other one to finish things. There's even some missions that can't handle 2 players, so we started in co-op mode, and then it just didn't let her select a character and I had to go do it by myself. And then of course there's this weird problem where 2 players create collision issues somehow. It's like an invisible wall kept popping up and preventing us from progressing in these levels. And we can't backtrack either, so we were just stuck like green pizza-eating mimes in a box. At one point, it was so bad I had to reset the level so we could try again because we just couldn't walk past a certain point anymore. It became soft-locked. Sometimes the camera gets stuck on a certain spot and we had to like walk backwards then walk forwards to corral it into the right spot so the invisible barrier would disappear and we could finally progress. I hate having to babysit this camera. It just cannot keep up with the regular gameplay and keeps screwing us over, especially near the final levels. It's just not stable enough to handle 2 players bumping through here, so I guess it's a blessing that this game doesn't have 4-player co-op, because that would run even worse. Don't throw your controller!
Debbie, I don't want to play this game anymore. This is worse than Souls games.
Ow!
At least with Souls game, I'm having fun.
I'm sorry.
Oh, look at that pizza!
What the f? The pizza is aggressive! Even from a design standpoint, this doesn't feel accommodating to 2 players because the downtime between missions is not designed for the second person to have anything to do. It's all just player 1 walking around these environments and talking to people, and I'd imagine another person would be bored to tears during these. Like, I tried to picture playing this with my cousin Alejandro when we were kids. We used to rock through Incredibles Rise of the Underminer, but I think he would have gotten frustrated playing this game with me if we were like 8 years old, and I was telling him we couldn't do the combat and had to stop and talk to the NPCs with purely text-based dialogue for the next half hour before doing another proper mission. They try to mitigate this by letting player 2 have use of the in-game phone, but that's only really used for these bland side activities like doing these stupid AR games or taking in-game pictures that don't actually save anywhere as far as I can tell. I guess you can put stickers on the environments in non-combat areas. It's just as boring as it sounds. This is emblematic of this game's true struggle. Inside Mutants Unleashed are 2 wolves. One is a really bad, repetitive beat-em-up. One is a really dry RPG game. In theory, it's cool that this game wants to be both of these things, but in execution it feels like neither half is fleshed out enough to really be worth it. About halfway through my playthrough, I started to run out of these social link quests because I prioritized them so heavily. Apparently this game isn't as punishing about focusing on them as I thought it would be, and they start giving you like 16 days of time before the next mission. But I've been conditioned by Mass Effect 2 to be a huge people pleaser in video games, lest it result in my entire crew being obliterated in the last 2 hours because I didn't make a bigger deal about helping them with all their daddy issues. So it was at least nice to realize that I exhausted the side missions for the most part and could just bunker down and focus on the main story. But that's still full of repeated levels and long drawn-out dialogue scenes, so it only helped me focus on how bored I was getting. I finished one multi-hour tedious task to be rewarded with another. Alright, back to the grind. I swear, there's only really enough content for about 10 actual levels, and they somehow stretched it to nearly 40. Can someone go through this game for me and figure out how long it would actually be if you played every single level only once and then never went back there again? I'm genuinely curious to know. There's certainly not enough story to keep this game interesting for that long, and they could sure drag that out. We spend hours on mini story arcs with such variety as Leatherhead has gone crazy and we gotta do 3 or 4 levels to stop her, and Wingnut has gone crazy and we gotta do 3 or 4 levels to stop her, and Bebop and Rocksteady have gone crazy, and oh wow, that is the whole game, isn't it? All the boss fights are just your friends. Even the turtles end up getting mind controlled by purple stuff. The boss fights aren't very engaging and are extremely easy. They're also not balanced for 2 players, so they're even easier if you have a second person helping.
We didn't know how much it meant to you.
Don't taunt him. You're making it
Well,
worse. I think he wants you to apologize, Raph.
man, he really tried.
He didn't stand a chance.
Wow!
Effective as a teammate.
That was embarrassing! The only one I really liked was getting chased around in the dark maze by Leatherhead with a shotgun because it was different, kind of creative, even if the enemy pathing wasn't really smart enough to make it that challenging. Mutants Unleashed is a perfect nostalgia trip, and then it feels exactly like a bad PS2 tie-in game, of which there used to be many. It's a perfect throwback to the most frustrating gaming memories of my childhood. Except back then, you just had to put up with it because there was nothing else to play. Now I have to put up with it because I'm making YouTube videos to pay my mortgage and impending medical bills, so I gotta suffer the boredom and try to squeeze some entertainment value out of it. I went into this game really wanting to like it because I love the movie and I like the TV show attached to this version of the Turtles, but I completely lost interest around like the 30% mark, and playing this became such a miserable experience. I only completed it because I feel like I'd be a fraud if I published an overwhelmingly negative review for a game I'd never finished. I mean, come on, I gotta have some standards, I'm not IGN. But god damn is this game not fun in the slightest, and even co-op couldn't help it. At the very least, it felt like the side missions did have kind of an effect in the long run, because everyone you helped throughout the game shows up at the end to make the final boss easier. Bebop brought us pizza for health pickups! How helpful and revolting! The nerdy kid even uses his drone to help us catch incriminating evidence on the bad guy. Wait, I actually can't tell if this has multiple endings when looking online. There's so little information about this game. I'm genuinely curious to see if there's a bad ending that results from not hanging out with everyone. Someone in the comments, let me know if you played this story like a selfish misanthrope and then the bad guy got away at the end or something. I really want to know if what I did actually had an effect on anything, or if it was all a placebo effect and this is the only ending. There are some decent ideas in here for a more interesting game with some brevity to it, but being dragged out across 12 to 15 hours of repetition completely kills all that potential. There's just no excuse for this game to be this long. It would have been so much more effective and memorable if it was only half that length, with a much tighter focus on a few solid levels with some variety. The social side quests would have been a lot more engaging if there were far less of them, so it didn't feel like you were being so spread thin trying to balance dozens of them with an already bloated story mode. I could excuse so much that was wrong with Mutants Unleashed if I didn't have to sit with all of its flaws for the length of an entire season of a Netflix Marvel series. Like, if it was short, I could probably be like, oh, you know, I didn't like it that much, but, you know, it wasn't a big deal. But now it is a big deal. You made it a big deal. Sadly, I gotta recommend you stay away from this one. It's getting added to the huge pile of bad TMNT beat-em-up games that I've played for this channel. For every amazing game like Turtles in Time or Shredder's Revenge, there's like 4 of these to balance out that quality with mediocrity. I always get mad at YouTube for not putting my videos in the subscription box because people will comment, "Finally, Xavier uploads again after all these years," not knowing 3 other videos came out within the last month already. So maybe that stupid bell icon thing will help you remember I exist. If you want other ways to support the channel, you can always go hit up that Patreon for early videos and exclusive stuff because it's just $1. I'm not kidding, it's only $1. Isn't that cool? If just 5% of the people subscribed to me donated only $1 a month, I could make videos even faster and keep my house. You can also check out our merch on TeePublic, or just buy some of my random stuff on eBay. I have a pretty substantial collection of old toys that are still in the box in perfect condition, so go take a look in case you find something you like. And lastly, since this is a YouTube video and you probably play Fortnite, drop my creator code XavierGM next time you buy a silly dance or a cool character skin. Really helps me out. See you next time!